Why should people care about the quality of their water?
You know, if you don't care about the quality of your water, your body soon will let you know that it's an important thing to care about. Foggy concentration, memory, energy, and all of these things can actually be tied back to water, including neurotoxic behaviors and even cancers. If you don't have your health, what do you have?
You are a functional medicine doctor.
Join us as we blend modern and ancient wisdoms to be well now.
Welcome to the Be Well Now podcast. We're talking about dirty water. The Environmental Working Group, Dr. Ron Dummar, just came out with some data.
Yes.
About Heber and Midway. So if you're local, the data's not good. Mm-hmm. We're going to get to that. But you are a local doctor here in Heber, and that's why you want to do this podcast. You really felt compelled that we ought to spread the word.
Well, yeah, we've done a podcast on water before, and there were some mild contaminants that I was aware of. And then I recently came across this Environmental Working Group's updated report on area codes by area codes. So you can go to their website and look at this to get more information. We're going to talk about a few of the contaminants today.
But we're not going to just keep it local. So if you're not in the Utah area, please keep listening. It's just, this could be your area as well, right? Because the numbers got worse in our area. So what's happening near you, we encourage you to look at
absolutely.
Your own area.
And it's something that's a big deal throughout the country right now. It's the quality of water. The Environmental Protection Agency has actually listed that water is a significant contributor to illness and disease in our country, in the United States of America. So we need to make sure that our water is of the highest cleanliness and purity.
I'm a patient of yours. I'm Nick, the curious patient, Dr. Ron Dummar here at Community Health and Wellness. And it's easy to feel scared about water. Like I'm already feeling myself in my body. I can just contracting. Mm-hmm. But it's probably good sometimes to scare people a little bit, to get them to wake up. So I don't know where you want to start with this. But, I think we all do the best we can, whether it's a Brita filter or bottled water. And then you think about the plastics and is this filter any good? And then there's all the high level stuff. And then there's spring water and there's drink it out of glass bottles. And boy, do I get overwhelmed when I think about water.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a topic that can be overwhelming because water is everywhere. It seeps through and into everything. It can be very destructive, but it's also incredibly productive and is required for every aspect of health in our bodies. And so what we're going to talk about is not just the problem with water or the issues in the water, but also things that we can do or groups that we can become active in to contribute to being a positive voice in our world for cleaning up our water sources.
Where do we start?
Well, let's start by helping people understand that this is not just a today issue. This is an issue. Okay. Cleaning up water is something that has been a necessity for a long time. And historically, obviously, water has been the sustenance of life for civilizations. If you had a quality water source, you could actually have and develop a town or develop a civilization. Without a water source, you're toast. And if it's a poor water source or contaminated water source, the entire town suffers. One case in point is obviously people are aware of Rome and the Roman civilization that largely they say was not toppled because of any government or any infighting or anything like that, but they say it was toppled by lead in the water. And lead is actually a neurotoxin, okay? So the piping, the transportation of water, the movement of water from place to place, and the contaminants that can be found in that water have a significant impact in our lives. A more recent example is in London, England, which really helped to draw our attention to, hey, there may be something significant to us, to our bodies and to our health that is found in our water. And there is a place in England called Soho, and England in general were beginning to improve some of their sanitation, some of their sewer systems, but it hadn't gotten to Soho yet. And some of the markets, the jobs, things that people would do in their businesses required at that time a lot of animal feces to be excrement to be essentially pushed out into the street and down into what they had working at the time, which was a very rogue or elemental sewage system. But this also
This is like
seeped.
mid 1800s.
Yes.
Okay.
And
I didn't know if you said that or maybe I didn't.
no, I didn't.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't. But it's like mid 18.
About like
we're not
current.
recent day. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. And so, but this excrement and even certain like oils and things like that were thrown out into the street would seep down and into the housing district, right, into where people's living spaces, and there were literally all of these excrements and that found themselves under the floorboards of certain people's living spaces. And so it became a significant health issue. And there was one doctor, his name was John Snow, and he started doing experiments trying to figure out why so many people were getting sick in certain areas. And there were literally pockets where people would get very, very sick, and there would be a gathering of these pockets of illness and disease. So he suspected that it had to be something that they were drinking. So what he did is he took and tested these different groups and found out that they were getting water from a specific well. And the well he believed to be contaminated by some of the seepage from all of the other activities within the district. So what he did is he took a group of individuals that were highly contaminated, and he said, okay, we're going to have this group half of them start taking water from a different well that we know doesn't seem to be anybody in that area that's sick. And so they started getting their water from a different well, and all of a sudden, all of those individuals completely cleared up with all of their ailments and diseases. So he essentially proved through that there was something to the source of water. Okay.
Yeah, I think we all know that water's...
It's a significant issue. So I share that with people because it's a very classic example of water being a carrier of contamination.
Right.
Okay. So now in our modern day, how does water or our environment become more important? Well, we know that even last year or within the past year and a half, there was an exposure to heavy chemicals and even a burn of chemicals from a train crash or collision that had occurred in Palestine. I think it was Palestine, Ohio.
Yeah, East Palestine, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
Ohio. Yeah.
And so here's a paragraph from the Time magazine on February 3rd, and it said 2022. A train loaded with toxic chemicals derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, igniting a fire and forcing controlled release and burn of vinyl chloride, a known cancer-causing compound, to avert disaster explosion. The environmental catastrophe killed thousands of fish in nearby streams and has triggered growing concern of the impact of residents' health on the village's surface and ground and well water. So obviously, people in East Palestine, this being on the news for a period of time, drew our attention, at least my attention as well, to, okay, what are we doing as a community and as a group to ensure that we have access to the most clean water as possible? And how do we, let's say East Palestine is not East Palestine all of a sudden, it's our local area, and we have contamination within our water. What can we do to prevent our family and ourselves from being potentially contaminated, or at least limiting that exposure as well as possible? We're going to talk about that here.
Well, because the World Health Organization says that contaminated water is linked to transmission of diseases such as cholera, diarrhea, dysentery, hepatitis A, typhoid, and polio.
Yes.
These are some notes that you've curated for the podcast. I love how you want to include data, and I know how your brain works. Like, you spent your life researching and delving into like the science, right?
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
how and I'm more of a soundbite guy.
Yeah. And so
we know we gotta have clean water. We know we gotta have clean water.
Yes.
Bad water stuff helps spread disease. Like I believe it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at the war-torn countries, if you look at the developing nations, they're still, like polio, for instance, we're still trying to fight polio in the world. That fight is not over.
I think of it as
we're still trying to eradicate it. Right.
And you're telling me that's not true?
Right. We have vaccinated. We keep vaccinating. And vaccines just are not holding up for what they should. Because what's happening is the source for polio is actually fecal oral, or it's contaminated water, or it's poor sanitation. So if in the areas where we have poor sanitation and we have poor quality of water, we will continue, regardless of vaccination, to have increases and exposure to polio.
Got it. So Heber and Midway, very affluent areas. You'd think the water up here would be great. I don't know why affluent equals great. I just assume that folks up here would demand that their water is great because they're $1 million homes everywhere.
Absolutely.
And clearly, water quality is not great here.
Yeah, well,
and I want to know more about that. But the
environmental working group did the study, and they actually found that there within Heber and Midway, there are essentially 10, I'd say between 9 and 11 chemicals or heavy metals that are toxic to human life that's in our drinking water. And so you can go on to Environmental Working Group's website, www.ewg.org. It's that simple. And you just scroll down and you can get to a place where you can fill out your zip code. You put in your zip code and it will tell you what they found in the drinking water of your zip code. And they do have a variety of different water access points or that they've tested. So you can look at all of that information. You can get it there yourself, go into more detail, and I don't necessarily recommend going down a significant rabbit hole, but if you're in a position or a place where you can have a voice to say, hey, what are we doing about these concerns, and how is it possible potentially that we could improve our water supply in this area? I would ask you and plead with you to voice your opinion and to speak up and to use the environmental working group studies. So what's causing it
and what can be done if you were the Prime Minister of Heber?
If I'm the Prime Minister of Heber, yes, that's what we need to do, right? Is we need to say, what do we have available to us? What access can we have? Are these things finding their way into our drinking water simply because we don't have the adequate tools to get rid of them? Is that what's happening? Well, I don't know that that's the case because there are whole home filtration, which we have an entire podcast on filtration devices and water that we've done previously where we recommended different filters, and go check out that podcast for more information on that. And this is something that we do recommend as well that you get is look at getting either a pitcher filter, right, or getting a whole home filtration device. So that's really what you can do on your end, right? Is to essentially procure all of the water coming into your home, make sure that is actually safe. Now, there are certain things that if you shower, like the water that you shower with, the water you bathe with, and the exposure to those chemicals or the exposure to those contaminants may not affect you in bathing as much or showering as they would by actually ingesting it. For instance, in Midway, let's look at this. This is in Heber. Heber, we put there. One of the things we wanted to talk about was arsenic that was found in Heber, and arsenic is actually a cancer tumorigenic type of compound. It's known as a carcinogen, and it's been detected at levels above what the Environmental Working Group considers to be safe. So long-term exposure to arsenic obviously can lead to various cancers and cardiovascular diseases. The one that I wanted to share with you, though, as well was radium. So in Midway, there's a significant and elevated levels to radium. And radium is actually, radium can also cause cancers. But it's not something that, again, you're going to have a significant exposure to simply by bathing or showering, but it's through ingestion. So the water that you're drinking is going to influence the cells of your body. And it's actually been related to, if you're drinking water that's contaminated with radium isotopes, it's been related to anemias, which we see patients with quite often, cataracts, anybody who's dealing with cataracts, or even fractured or brittle teeth formation. So if you're looking at brittle bones or depletion of bone mineral density, cataracts, anemias, if you're struggling with those type of things, then water is very likely to be a contributing factor to your ailment.
Isn't there a lot of lead in the water here too?
There's lead, and lead is a neurotoxin. Remember a number of years ago, it was China. Everybody's worried about China sending lead paint. They were covering their toys in lead paint. They were worried about kids licking their, or sticking their toys in their mouths. And there was a great big to-do about it. Well, now we do have lead in our water systems. And if it's in our water supply and we're consuming it, and it is a neurotoxin, then certainly we need to be aware of this, and we need to bring this to our local leadership. And if anyone knows or is aware of those who are working in the water district as well, see how can we improve and what can be done. It's not a matter of going at it by saying, we're so mad at you, you've been ruining our water, because no, our water in the past 80 years, 100 years, our availability and access to good, clean water has actually improved in a significant way, which is also why one of the reasons we in the United States look at the depletion or a lot of these communicable diseases, these childhood type of diseases, and we say, look, we're not really having a lot of these anymore, not like we used to anyway, and a lot of that is due to our improvement in sanitation and clean water. And so you don't want to come at it. We're not asking you to come at the water issue by being overly aggressive or accusatory. What we want to do is say, how do we solve this problem? Because this is obviously showing up in our water, and these are contaminants. And they're in excess. These are contaminants that are in excess of what is considered to be appropriate for human health. Okay, so those are things that are found in our water supply. We only covered a few. Remember, there's 10 in essentially each Midway and Heber. So go and look if you want to get into it. Look at the environmental working groups list of our contaminations in our water supply. Here, what can we do?
Yeah, what can we do?
Is that what you wanted to say?
I kind of want to know more recommendations of what I can do at home.
Yes,
but you're pushing me to another podcast. I'm asking you for answers now.
Yeah, well,
how do we feel about that?
I want you to go to our other podcast, because we did cover that really well at home.
Shower filters are good. You recommended certain water filters if you can get a home shower or home water filtration systems. Like
if you're concerned about your shower or bathing, we talked about that as not being as significant, but it certainly is. I mean, everything that your body is exposed to, even on your skin, it takes in. It becomes continuous with your blood inside. And so things that you apply topically are going to be taken up by your skin, right? Your skin is an organ. It's your largest organ that you have. And so you need to take care of it. So certainly the contaminants that are found in the water do make a difference. I'm just telling you from a research standpoint, from a scientific standpoint, they would say that there's certainly not the same exposure to receiving something across your skin as there is to ingesting something.
Makes sense.
And that's the same thing with polio. It's like to receive polio, it's interesting because we do polio injections or immunizations via an injection right to the muscle. Well, that's not how polio is transmitted, which is really interesting, because you're like, well, if I want to try to replicate and help the body to overcome something or develop a defense against something, you would want to work with those areas of the immune system that front the most significant defense at the very beginning. And so it's a fecal oral, right? You consume it. It comes through your oral cavity, essentially. That's how the polio virus is spread. So we would want to focus on those sources that cause that contamination through that oral exposure, essentially. So I would say you want to, number one, support and advocate for clean water legislation. Okay? So encouraging policies that protect water sources from pollution and ensure strict water quality standards. You can use the Environmental Working Group's website and go through there for great examples of what standards we would be looking for as well. And if you're going to go to, say, a meeting with a water district individual, do a little bit of research in that regard and say, okay, I'm aware that these contaminants exist in our water, and here's some ideas from legislation, and maybe other people have also passed these in other states that I think we should implement. Okay? Number two, we can invest in water infrastructure. So this is where water infrastructure would be, it can be as a community, but it can also be water infrastructure in our own home. So this would be like the water shower filters. So the shower head, there are filters that you can get for the water where you're running it through a filtration system so that it pulls out and leaches out those heavy metals and toxins and chemicals before it emits the water to your body. So that's probably a really good way to do it if you're concerned about the showering water. A great way to do it is a whole home filtration system. We've talked about this before as well. But whole home filtration systems, you also have to pay attention to your water pressure, because you need to be aware that if you put in a whole home filtration system, it takes the water running into the home is at a certain pressure, PSI. And that pressure is downgraded once it starts to seep through the filters. So the filters take time to filter the water, and then as it pushes through on the other side, there's a loss of pressure. So you'd have to regulate that. In our home, I will tell you what we do. We have a whole home water filtration system, and I haven't figured out a really great way to increase the pressure. And one of our listeners maybe knows. Maybe one of our listeners will say, hey, Dr. Dummar, I got a great fix for you. I can help you with your water pressure, because that would be fantastic. I would love to have my filters going the entire time. If we have family over, or if we have lots of people using the shower at the same time, you almost get no water, on the upper floors.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and this is like you'd have to have the dishwasher on and maybe the clothing washer as well, right? And so it would be trying to pull a whole bunch of water. Well, with the city water pressure on, we'd be able to do that throughout all of those. But with the filters on, with our whole water filtration or whole house filtration system, it just really goes down and basically stops, or it's just a very small trickle on the upper floors. And so what we'll do when we have that happening is we have to go down, and I have a knob where I can basically turn it to go through the filters, or turn it to where it's going through the filters and doing direct from the city. So I still am using both because I have to solve my water pressure problems on occasion as well. So that's the way I do it in my house. But having a method and a process that you can develop, that you can go through. And if anybody does have a solution for me, I'm happy to hear it. And I'd love to be able to invest in some process that you know of that could improve my water pressure. Anything else on that? You want to investing in home infrastructure for water?
No, that sounds pretty good. Okay.
So how about get involved locally? We actually have a local in this community. It's called it's a nonprofit organization, but it's called Hearts and Hands for Humanity. Have you ever heard of this?
Uh-uh.
So there's a BYU group out of BYU. They started a little while ago, maybe 15 years ago or so ago now. But they started developing the mission. Their mission was to bring clean water access to African communities. Okay? And so they would take trips to Africa and they would dig wells. And they developed this system that didn't require a lot of power. You could pump it. But they would build this well. It required an amount of money. They had to get the well digging equipment and everything out there. So they would raise funds. They would fly over there. They would go to a community and they would dig a well for that community so that they could have purified water. So what am I telling you? What is our method, or one of our greatest methods of purifying water? It's groundwater, like water seeping through the ground. We were on a hike this weekend, and we went up into the mountains near the Tetons, and there's this hike called the Wind Caves hike. It was a great hike. Loved it. It was very fun, and we went with a lot of family. And, I walked some of it. I hiked some of it. I ran some of it, just challenging myself a little bit too. And at the end, you go up, you see there's this great big waterfall. There's a waterfall that comes out of the cave. And it's inside the cave, and then this water it's like rushing and gushing out of the cave. And so we go up to the waterfall just inside the cave, and my son says, "Dad, can you drink this water?" And, my instinct in our current culture, my instinct is to say no, right? That's my current instinct, is to say no. You can't drink that water because, it's only safe to drink water that's been treated. But in reality, and I replied to him after a second, and I said, well, yeah, you can drink this water. This is water that's been seeping through the ground. It's been filtered. It's gone through a variety of different filtration systems. Now, the further and further you get down in that little stream, the more opportunity there are for other animals to contaminate the water. And so the less likely you would want to drink that water. But as far as from the cave, as close to the source of the spring as possible, can you drink that water? 100%. We have here really close to Midway, Cascade Springs. And you can take a hike up there. You can walk around the springs. You can see how many thousands and thousands of gallons of purified, clean water comes directly out of the mountain, and you can drink straight from it. And they actually have water fountains up there that are coming. It's pressurized. It's not filtered or anything. It's just coming. You're drinking straight from the stream, from the spring, and those water fountains are from that. You can go up and do that hike. It's a wonderful hike that we have here, and it's a great access that we have to clean drinking water. Maybe someday we'll have Cascade Springs drinking water, right?
Sounds
that would
good to
be
me.
really fun.
Let's do it.
So the point is, you want to get involved locally, maybe support Hearts and Hands for Humanity. It's something that you can do that is a great way of at least contributing to decreasing disease and ailments for populations of the world. You can literally eliminate and wipe out many of the most common diseases by simply providing for them clean access to water. Another one that you can do is educate. You can educate others. You can talk to them about the water. You can share your opinions, and you can you can express to them the importance that you feel that clean water is in our life. Now, some people may laugh you off, right? They may laugh about it when they think, oh, you're concerned about clean water. Okay, yada, yada. But again, we have the environmental working groups report, and we also have the knowledge that the EPA has suggested that a lot of these diseases, one of the major contributors to disease and ailment in the United States is access to clean water. There's another area that you can get involved with. It's called the uswateralliance.org. Not necessarily local, but it should be. I guess it's a national group, so it should be local everywhere, right? But I pulled up their website. It's uswateralliance.org, and they have here, Imagine a Day Without Water. Imagine a Day Without Water is a national day of action that brings together diverse participants to highlight how water is essential, invaluable, and in need of continuous investment. This year's day of action will take place on October 17th. So that's coming up here in a little bit, and maybe we'll remind you with another tidbit in the future. But the statement, it's invaluable and it's in a continuous need of investment. This is an important thing for us to recognize. Water is not something for us to set aside and to think, oh, it's done. We've sorted the water issue. Water needs to be continually reassessed, right? If we collect water and leave it on the shelf, what happens to it? Water can spoil. Water can actually go bad. And so we need to be continually checking, monitoring, and evaluating our water. There's a variety of different types of chloroform or bacteria species that can build up in water as well. Obviously, there's a variety of different minerals and mineralization within water. But what we're looking for and highlighting today is the contaminants that might be considered to be problematic to our health. And both Midway and Heber do have contaminants that are problematic to health and that can potentially be neurotoxic.
So would you drink the tap water?
I try to drink tap water as little as possible.
Any issues at school with our kids drinking out of the drinking fountains there?
Well, are there issues with them drinking? Yes, but if they have continuous and regular access to good, clean water apart from school, they're going to be a lot better off, right?
All right, that's a sane perspective in an insane world.
Yes, exactly. Oh,
what a podcast!
That was very nice.
Can we just?
Oh wow, thank you.
Give you a round of applause.
Hello. Oh gosh.
I mean, life-changing stuff.
Very kind, Nick.
And then this song says, "It's time to wrap it up."
There it is.
Namaste, everybody.
Namaste.
Be well now.